I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. It is Tuesday, so I'm here to critique one of your original paintings or drawings. If you have an original painting or drawing that you would like to submit for critique, head over to my website, lachri.com/critiques. That link is below in the video description. As always, you can submit your work there. There is a very long waiting list. I think right now it's like over 2 years, so it's a long one. Today's critique comes from artist Ginger Booker. This is only her second time working in colored pencils, and she shared her first one too, which was also amazing. I can't get over this. Ginger, you have done a great job capturing his expression, the details in his face, just really nicely done. Taking a look at a few things we can adjust to improve on this even more. First, looking at your reference photo. You're using a reference photo that is using indoor lighting, or actually it looks like it's done with a flash, which washes everything out. And when you're new to a medium or new to portraits, I don't think you're new to portraits. I have to believe you've done this before because this is so amazing. But when you are new to a medium, make sure you're using a very high quality reference photo, because what makes for a really cute photograph doesn't always translate that great into art, and it makes it really hard for you to see where the shadows and highlights need to go, because everything does get washed out so much. All of his whites in his eyes are completely washed out in the reference photo. The whites in his shirt are completely washed out, so there's no real shading there. But there is more shading than what you've done in yours. You have kept everything super pale in his skin, and if we look at these color samples, these are lined up where each dot next to each other is the same spot on the reference photo to your artwork, and you can see yours is super pale, super light. You don't have any of the darks in there. So even though this was taken with a flash, you can still go so much darker to make your work look that much more realistic and to get a lot more depth in your work. Because everything is kept so light, you've got all of your light tones, but not a lot with the mid-range and none of the darker ones. So that's what's causing everything to be very washed out. Now the funny thing is, I can see where you've started to add the shadows. They're in the right location. So nothing is wrong here, it's just not finished. Now as you get more experience with colored pencil or with painting and drawing portraits, you won't need to have as high quality of a reference photo. You would be able to take this and just have a general idea of where your lights and darks go. But like here, you've left the whites of his eyes completely white all the way through, which is how it is on your reference photo. But in doing that, you flatten them out. You're always going to have shading on the eyes. I have a video showing you how to do that here in colored pencil, so if you want to check that out. But you're always going to have shading. The same thing with the highlight. The highlight, because of the way the flash is, it's just this little dot not in the right spot at all. This is not where a highlight would naturally fall in the eye. The highlight's generally going to be on the upper section of the eye. And it's going to have different shapes and be slightly rounded to make it look realistic. It won't just be a teeny tiny little dot. So when you've worked from a really good reference photo over and over again for many years, you'll get to where you know how to apply what you've learned on those really good photos to the photos that are taken with a flash. That's a cute photo, but the lighting's not so great. You will know how to make those adjustments to make your artwork that much more amazing. But you've got to work from the really high quality reference photos to learn those lessons first, or work from life. That's another option. When you're starting with a photo where a flash has washed everything out, you're not going to learn the lessons on portraiture that you need to. So for all of you who are wanting to do portraits, use a high quality reference photo where the photo was taken in natural lighting, not with a flash. And for his eyes in general, there's no shading. You're almost always going to have a shadow underneath that upper lid. There may be some variations depending on where your light source is, but in most cases you're going to have the upper portion of the eye shaded from where the shadow from the upper lid is causing. And here there isn't one, not over the iris and not over the whites of the eye. And so everything's super round, kind of like an owl. And in this case, his pupils are not quite right, and it's really obvious because of that. If you were to add the shadow where the shadow needs to go, it wouldn't be so obvious that the pupils aren't perfect. Again, focusing on the eyes, his eyelashes are super dark. Now part of the reason they seem so dark is the contrast, because the skin around his eyes is way too light. But even so, the lines are, it looks like you pushed a little bit too hard. All of the individual eyelashes are super thick, almost like he's wearing mascara. So this is another area. Lighten it up, don't go quite that dark, and use a lighter hand. Make sure your pencils are super sharp. And when I draw eyelashes in colored pencil, and again that video that I linked earlier will go over that, I start with a lighter line. I don't go super dark to start with. I start with a mid kind of brownish tone, a light brown, and then add the darker colors just a little bit here and there. But it's not just solid dark all the way through on the eyelashes, because that again goes back to making the child look like he's wearing mascara. And you also want to make sure that the eyelashes start thicker and end up thinner towards the end, so it's not just thick stop, because because that also goes back to having a very unnatural look. The eyelashes on the bottom are almost always, unless someone's wearing a lot of makeup, are almost always going to be a lot lighter than the ones on the top, so another thing to watch out for. Now onto his mouth. You've gone very orange, whereas the reference photo is more pink. This is a very corally orange. I would definitely lean more towards the pinks when drawing mouths in most cases. There are always going to be exceptions. Sometimes the lighting around the subject really would make it look better that you have the coral colors that you have here. But in this case, I would really go more towards the burgundies, reds, pinks, that sort of thing. Now the lips are super dark, almost like he's got lipstick on. They're not. Your values are actually pretty good. I mean, you have the color shift there, but the values themselves, you're about as dark as you should be here. The problem is that the skin around the lips is so light that it's making the lips appear that much darker. Sometimes when you're drawing or painting something, the color that you have will look like it's wrong and you can't figure out why, or the value seems wrong and you can't figure out why, and it's not necessarily the area you're working on, it's the area next to it creating that illusion. So here, if we were to darken up the skin around his lips, that's going to make his lips not appear like they're glowing so much. You did a great job. His tongue and teeth, I did think you did such a great job here, and the teeth again would have more shading on it if the flash had not whitened everything out, but you really did a good job copying your reference photo. You're going to be so amazing at this that you're starting off at this level. Now my last tip is for the background. For your background, you've got pretty much as much detail there as you do on your subject. You've also got some of those ornaments where they are just drawing attention away, like there's that big square kind of this side of his face. That one is really pulling your attention away from his face because it's like pale face, pale ornament, no difference. It just kind of pulls you off away from your subject, which is not what you want. So here, something very, very simple you can do. One, first, that I would just drop that ornament out, just let that area be dark. Your other ornaments, like the reindeer, darken that up a bit so it's not quite as bright, and then blur everything out just a touch. You don't have to go super, super blurry, but if you blur that just a bit, you're going to push the subject forward that much more, which is your goal. You want the subject here, when you're doing portraits, you want people drawn to that. And so by just softening that up a little bit, it's going to make a huge, huge difference. But again, you did such an amazing job. You should be so proud of this piece. And if you guys want to check out more of her work, she does have some of that posted over on Facebook. I will have a link to that below in the video description. Thanks for watching. If you're new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, our Q&A videos every Thursday, and artist vlogs each weekend. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. All of those social media sites are linked below in the video description where you can keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. I'll see you guys tomorrow.